Now, as a fighter, Steve McQueen, now he is good in that department because that son of a gun got the toughness in him.
Steve McQueen left more than cool cars and classic films. He left a secret empire. A hidden vault, a shocking will, and one family member completely cut out. Decades later, a stunning discovery turned myth into millions. What began as Hollywood legend spiraled into something darker, revealing secrets no one expected. The deeper the search went, the more twisted the story became. And it's far from over. From reform school to royalty, Steve McQueen wasn't born into fame, he was born into chaos. His father walked out before he could speak. His stepfather was violent, and his mother left him behind more than once. By 14, McQueen was in a reform school called Boys Republic in Chino, California, where survival was more important than schoolbooks. It was there he learned to fight back, to rely only on himself, and to trust no one. That rough upbringing didn't break him, it hardened him. McQueen's attitude became his shield, and later, his selling point. He didn't care about fitting in or following rules. He had no interest in playing nice, and somehow, that made him stand out. Producers hated the drama but loved the money he brought in. Before the fame, McQueen joined the Marines. He clashed with authority and got thrown into the brig more than once. But he finished his service and later used that experience to add edge to his roles. That sense of danger made him believable on screen. He wasn't acting, he was just being himself. In Hollywood, McQueen didn't chase roles, roles chased him. He wouldn't show up on time, wouldn't follow scripts, and sometimes walked off sets. But the audience didn't care. His screen presence made people look past the chaos. By the 1960s, he was one of the highest paid stars in the world. The Great Escape launched him into the stratosphere. He didn't speak much in the film, but his silent stares said more than pages of dialogue. The motorcycle stunt in that film became legendary, even though a stuntman did the actual jump. Still, it added to the McQueen myth: cool, fearless, untouchable. Fans couldn't get enough. After that came Bullet, where he performed his own driving stunts through San Francisco. The car chase scene set a new standard in action filmmaking. That green Mustang fastback became a cultural icon, and a piece of gold in McQueen's legacy. Years later, that same Mustang sold for $37 million at auction. His choices on set had value far beyond the paycheck. Off-screen, McQueen hated Hollywood parties. He wore jeans to premieres, skipped press events, and avoided the spotlight. But that mystery only made him more valuable. Producers knew he was difficult, but audiences didn't care. So, the studios kept paying him more to show up. McQueen started to rewrite Hollywood rules. In 1968's The Thomas Crown Affair, he demanded $750,000 upfront, a massive sum at the time. Then came the Ask ChatGPT. Towering Inferno, where he negotiated a back-end deal that gave him a piece of the profits. That move earned him over $12 million. He didn't just make money, he made history. And it didn't stop there. McQueen charged $50,000 just to read a script. If he turned it down, he still kept the money. Studios were desperate to work with him because they knew he sold tickets. He used that demand to control everything, from wardrobe to camera angles. What most people didn't know was that McQueen was also stockpiling wealth in other ways. He collected cars, motorcycles, and watches, hundreds of them. He bought land, invested in rare collectibles, and owned real estate in California, Mexico, and Idaho. He wasn't flashy, but he was smart. While his peers spent recklessly, McQueen quietly built an empire. One of his best-kept secrets was his business deal with Honda. McQueen had a stake in the company's U.S. motorcycle marketing campaigns. His image was used to promote bikes, and it worked, sales exploded. That partnership brought in millions long after he stopped riding for the cameras. It was a branding move ahead of its time. And there's more. McQueen's involvement in off-road racing wasn't just for fun, he used it to promote motorcycles and gear he secretly owned shares in. That desert racing lifestyle became part of his brand, and companies paid him just to be seen in their products. He made millions without even talking about it. His silence was his strategy. When McQueen passed away in 1980, most people thought he died broke. Cancer treatments, lawsuits, and legal bills gave that impression. But in reality, his wealth was scattered across hidden accounts, property, and licensing rights. He had structured everything to stay private. That plan worked. For decades, nobody knew how much he was really worth. And it's still paying off. Today, his estate brings in millions every year from licensing his name, image, and film rights. His car and motorcycle collection alone is worth tens of millions. Steve McQueen didn't just build a career, he built a fortune that keeps growing long after his final credits rolled. The king of cool became the king of legacy. Buried in barns and sealed storage, McQueen's private collection turned out to be the most valuable treasure Hollywood almost forgot. Hidden assets that nobody tracked. Steve McQueen wasn't loud about money. He didn't flash gold watches or pose in front of giant mansions. Most people thought he lived modestly, but behind the scenes, he was building something massive. He spent quietly and strategically, turning his passion for machines into a private empire. No press coverage, no public records, just storage units and locked barns filled with value. By the 1970s, McQueen had gathered one of the largest private motorcycle collections ever seen. Over 130 rare and vintage bikes were part of his stash. He favored British, German, and American models, including Triumphs, Husqvarnas, and Indians. Some bikes were customized just for him, one-offs that collectors would later pay huge sums for. He didn't display them, he stored them in temperature-controlled garages on remote properties. His love for cars was just as serious. McQueen owned nearly 60 high-end, historic vehicles, many of them now considered irreplaceable. He had a 1963 Ferrari 250 GT Lusso, a Jaguar XKSS, and the actual Mustang GT 390 from Bullitt. He also kept a rare Porsche 917K, one of the most iconic racing cars ever made. That car alone sold at auction years later for over $14 million. McQueen wasn't just collecting for fun. He was investing in assets that would grow over time. Each bike, each car, was picked with care, most had a story or racing background. He didn't buy them to flip or show off. He bought them because he understood long-term value in physical, unique objects. What shocked many came years after he died. In 2006, a dusty barn in New Mexico was opened by his estate managers. Inside, they found an untouched treasure trove, dozens of motorcycles, stacks of helmets, leather jackets, original film scripts, and even race gear with his name stitched inside. It had sat quietly for decades, completely forgotten. Experts who catalogued it estimated the total value at over $30 million. That barn discovery became a turning point in how McQueen's wealth was viewed. Up until then, most people assumed his estate was simple, some residual film earnings, maybe some land. But the barn revealed a deeper layer of wealth that wasn't obvious. It was like a time capsule of Hollywood. Ask ChatGPT. Royalty. The items inside were museum quality, and most had never been seen by the public. He also had smaller, but high-value collections. Vintage watches, signed photos, one-of-a-kind film props, all stored in private safes and vaults. One of his Rolex Submariners, for example, sold for over $234,000 at auction. Another rare timepiece, a Hoya Monaco worn in Le Mans, went for $2.2 million. These weren't showpieces, McQueen wore them, used them, and then stored them away. McQueen's secret assets didn't stop at collectibles. He had partial ownership in racing teams, film licensing companies, and small businesses tied to gear and equipment. One of his quietest deals involved a desert racing company that used his image for promotions, and paid royalties directly to his estate. He also held profit-sharing arrangements in several of his movie contracts. Even if a film stopped airing, the licensing value didn't. Another layer few people know about, McQueen licensed his likeness and name during his lifetime in ways most stars didn't. He had early rights deals with brands like Tag Heuer and Triumph. These deals, though small back then, allowed his estate to cash in big decades later. Today, companies still pay to use his name, image, and old footage. That passive income now brings in millions every year. What McQueen created wasn't obvious wealth, it was embedded wealth. It couldn't be seen from the outside, but it sat there, gaining value. Every car, every contract, every dusty jacket in that barn told a piece of the story. He didn't build a flashy empire, he built a hidden one. And it turned out to be far more valuable. Even his real estate choices were calculated. He didn't live in the center of Hollywood, he owned remote properties in California and New Mexico. Some were large ranches, ideal for storing bikes and planes. Others were just quiet getaway spots. These locations doubled as storage zones for his collections, well protected, private, and never shown to the press. One more surprise, McQueen also collected old film reels of his performances. He stored multiple copies of his most famous scenes, along with personal annotations. These reels are now part of licensing deals that allow streaming companies to restore and reuse his footage. That's an income stream that didn't even exist when he died. But he set the groundwork for it, long before digital media took over. What McQueen built wasn't just a collection, it was a blueprint. A way for a movie star to stay rich without always working. He turned passion into property and mystery into money. And when it all came to light, people finally understood why he was more than just an actor. He was a brand, a businessman, and a legend whose legacy would outlive every paycheck. The will that divided a family and sparked a fortune. On November 7, 1980, Steve McQueen died in Juarez, Mexico, after undergoing a secret surgery. He had mesothelioma, a rare and aggressive cancer caused by asbestos exposure, and chose to avoid standard U.S. treatments. Instead, he flew to Mexico to try laetrile, a banned, unproven substance made from apricot pits. The operation was risky, unapproved, and desperate. He didn't survive the night. Back home, the press rushed to report that McQueen died broke. They said cancer treatments drained his money and his assets were gone. But the truth was far different. The full value of his estate wasn't immediately obvious. What he left behind would only reveal its true worth years later. At the time of his death, McQueen's estate was valued at around $2 million. That figure only counted liquid assets, bank accounts, properties, and obvious holdings. It didn't include the rare bikes, vintage cars, royalties, and image licensing rights that would grow massively in value. His team didn't even know the full scope of what he owned. Many assets weren't documented until years after probate. His will was written in January 1979, just under 2 years before he passed. It named his children, Chad and Terry, as the primary heirs. McQueen's ex-wife, Neil Adams, was completely excluded. Barbara Minty, his partner at the time of death, was granted some personal belongings, but not a large financial share. That decision surprised many, especially since they were reportedly planning to marry. The most controversial part of the will was a legal clause that cut out any unknown or future children. That meant if anyone came forward later claiming to be his child, they'd automatically be denied. Not long after, a woman filed a lawsuit claiming her son was McQueen's. She said she had evidence and asked for a share of the estate. But the court dismissed it due to lack of proof. Even more surprising, McQueen's lawyer, Ed Hookstratton, admitted there were 2 other paternity claims that never went public. These were handled quietly, behind closed doors. They never reached the courts, and no financial settlements were disclosed. The existence of those claims showed McQueen's legal team expected disputes. His will was built to shut those doors early. Another legal wrinkle came from his collection. Some of McQueen's vehicles, bikes, and memorabilia weren't clearly tied to him on paper. This created confusion over who actually owned what. His family had to work with appraisers and collectors to verify authenticity. In some cases, they recovered lost items through private auctions and sales. That process took years and added millions to the estate's worth. Chad McQueen, his son, took control of many licensing and branding decisions. He approved merchandise, restored vehicles, and worked with companies to protect his father's image. Terry McQueen, his daughter, managed other estate matters before her early death in 1998. After that, her share passed to her daughter, Molly. Barbara Minty, though not a major heir, became a public figure tied to McQueen's legacy and helped promote his story. One unique asset McQueen left behind was his right of publicity. This refers to the legal control of his name, image, and likeness after death. Back then, not every celebrity had it secured. McQueen did, and that single right became one of the most valuable parts of his estate. Today, licensing deals using his image generate more income than his movies ever did during his life. Over time, the estate grew far beyond the initial estimate. The New Mexico barn discovery, auction sales, and licensing agreements boosted the value into tens of millions. In 2015 alone, Forbes listed McQueen as one of the top-earning dead celebrities. His image was used in ads, racing events, and branded merchandise. That income is still flowing to his descendants. There were also quiet legal battles behind the scenes. Some centered on royalties from films like Bullitt and The Great Escape. Others involved ownership of certain memorabilia that had been loaned but not returned. The estate spent years tracking down items and defending McQueen's name from unauthorized use. Each victory added value and protected the brand. One lesser-known story, McQueen had planned to start a museum before he died. He wanted to showcase his bikes, racing gear, and film memorabilia in one place. He had even begun organizing items for display. That dream was never realized, but parts of his collection have appeared in temporary exhibits across the world. These exhibitions continue to bring attention, and licensing value, to his name. Steve McQueen didn't just leave behind fame, he left behind a brand so powerful, it rebuilt entire companies decades later. The licensing empire that nobody saw coming. After Steve McQueen died in 1980, his fame slowly faded. The world moved on to new stars, new styles, and new stories. But in the background, something unexpected began. Brands saw value in his face, his style, and everything he stood for. And they started making big money off it. By the 1990s, the licensing industry had exploded. Vintage icons were in demand, and McQueen's image fit perfectly. He wasn't just a movie star, he represented grit, cool, and classic rebellion. That's what companies wanted to sell. and McQueen became their secret weapon. The first big wave came through fashion. Barbour used a single photo of McQueen wearing one of their jackets and turned it into a $40 million campaign. It wasn't just clothing anymore, it was a lifestyle. That photo became one of the most profitable still images in marketing history. Tag Heuer followed next. The Swiss watchmaker reintroduced the Monaco watch, made famous in Le Mans. Their entire campaign centered on a shot of McQueen wearing it behind the wheel. The relaunch not only saved the brand, it pushed sales into record highs. McQueen's name had become a badge of authenticity. Then came Ford. The carmaker revived the Bullitt Mustang multiple times, using McQueen's connection as the key selling point. Commercials, posters, and special edition models leaned on the legend. Even without speaking, his legacy sold cars. And collectors paid top dollar for those models because of that link. The real power came from how carefully the estate managed these deals. They weren't handing out licenses to just anyone. Each contract focused on products that reflected McQueen's image: classic, cool, masculine. It wasn't just about money, it was about protecting a brand. That's why the strategy worked so well. Greenlight Licensing Group became the gatekeeper for all deals tied to McQueen's estate. They handled the legal side, trademarks, and product approvals. And they helped turn McQueen's image into a controlled business, one that grew each year. Forbes began tracking his posthumous earnings. And by the 2010s, he was one of the top-earning dead celebrities. Chad McQueen, Steve's son, played a major role. He made sure fake products were blocked and sued companies misusing his father's name. He also helped shape new licensing projects that respected the legacy. His decisions weren't emotional, they were strategic. He understood that the brand needed long-term planning to stay valuable. Even Porsche got involved. In 2017, the company worked with the estate to release a Le Mans tribute line. Special models, events, and merchandise followed. McQueen's face appeared in ads and limited edition content. And collectors were eager to own anything tied to the legend. One insight few people know is how McQueen's image has been used in international markets. In Japan and parts of Europe, his face sells high-end denim, racing gear, and even cologne. Licensing agents say he remains a strong figure in global marketing because he never became too American. His appeal crossed borders and generations. What's surprising is how selective the estate has remained. While many celebrity estates flood the market, McQueen's team keeps it tight. This scarcity adds value. When his name is attached to something, fans know it's been carefully chosen. That keeps the demand, and the prices, high. Licensing revenue today ranges from 7 to 9 figures each year. The amount depends on how active the campaigns are. But even in slower years, the numbers are strong. And unlike acting, licensing doesn't need new performances. McQueen's existing photos and footage keep making money, without lifting a finger. The biggest takeaway? Steve McQueen made more money after death than during his film career. And that's not because of new movies. It's because his legacy was built into a brand. A brand that still speaks to people today, without saying a single word. The heirs who got filthy rich. After Steve McQueen died, the fight over what he left behind didn't play out in loud courtrooms. It happened in the silence of legal paperwork, quiet business decisions, and unspoken resentments. The fortune didn't just grow, it shifted, split, and locked out some people completely. At the center of it all was Chad McQueen, Steve's only son, who quickly became the face of the estate. He inherited more than money, he inherited power. Chad was already in the spotlight before his father passed, working as an actor and later transitioning into racing. After Steve's death, Chad became a core figure in protecting and managing the McQueen name. He helped launch McQueen Racing LLC and oversaw branding tied to cars, motorcycles, and lifestyle products. Over time, he gained partial control of image licensing and endorsement deals. His net worth is now estimated at over $45 million, mostly due to this quiet empire. Terry McQueen, Steve's daughter, had a different path. She chose to work behind the scenes in Hollywood and became an executive for Universal Studios. She stayed out of public fights and focused on her own life. Sadly, Terry passed away in 1998 after a liver transplant. Before her death, she arranged for her estate rights to pass to her daughter, Molly. Molly McQueen is now part of the second generation profiting from the legacy. She's an actress and producer who consults with the estate on projects tied to her grandfather's image. Molly helps manage partnerships, approve licensing deals, and protect the McQueen brand's tone. Her position gives her a steady flow of royalties and long-term access to intellectual property rights. She is now considered one of the key custodians of Steve McQueen's legacy. Barbara Minty, Steve's third wife and fiancée at the time of his death, was named in his will but not as a major heir. She received personal items, clothes, letters, and memorabilia, but no large share of the estate. However, when licensing exploded, she became part of the earning circle. She later co-produced multiple documentaries about Steve, preserving his legacy through her lens. Her book, Steve McQueen, The Last Mile, became a bestseller and added more income from the brand's expansion. Despite not getting much at first, Barbara was later included in some royalty arrangements. As part of McQueen's public image preservation, she was given access to consult on projects. This opened doors for her to collect back-end earnings from certain campaigns. Today, she still holds influence over how his legacy is presented, though her financial cut remains smaller than Chad's. Then there's Neil Adams, Steve McQueen's first wife and the mother of his 2 children. She received nothing in the will. No money, no property, no recognition. For years, she spoke openly about her role in Steve's early career. She claimed she helped build his name, introduced him to key people, and supported him through his roughest years. Neil once said that she was erased from history. Her interviews and memoirs reflect that bitterness. She has never taken legal action, but her words highlight the emotional damage of being shut out. Despite being the mother of Chad and Terry, the estate structure left her empty-handed. Her exclusion is still one of the most discussed elements of McQueen's will. But there's one person even more invisible, a man whose name never made headlines. In 1969, Steve allegedly had a brief affair while filming abroad. Years later, the woman claimed her son was Steve's child. That claim was never formally acknowledged by McQueen or his legal team. The child never received a cent. When the mother passed away in 2012, the case was considered closed. But in 2023, new documents surfaced, including a series of letters and receipts tying McQueen to the woman during that filming period. Some insiders say there's a real chance this man is Steve's biological child. However, the statute of limitations on such claims and the lack of official DNA testing have kept it from becoming a court case. What's different now is that this man's legal team is reportedly preparing to reintroduce the claim. With the estate growing in value every year, even a small piece could mean millions. If confirmed, it could lead to a redistribution of royalties or at least a new round of legal negotiations. The estate hasn't commented publicly. But lawyers familiar with McQueen's will say this new evidence could be enough to open a new chapter. Even now, Steve McQueen's name prints money, but a hidden vault could reveal the most valuable piece of him yet. A fortune that keeps growing. When Steve McQueen died in 1980, his estate was valued at just under $2 million. For someone who had been one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood, the number seemed small. Critics said cancer treatments had wiped out his fortune. What they didn't see was the hidden value, the future of his name, his brand, and the objects he left behind. Decades later, that quiet fortune has grown into a $200 million legacy. His collectibles alone have soared in value. The 1968 Mustang from Bullitt sold for $37 million at auction. His racing suit from Le Mans was auctioned for nearly $1 million. Even his personal sunglasses, a pair of Passols, were sold for $70,000. Each sale didn't just bring in cash, it pushed his brand further into legend. What makes McQueen's fortune unique is that it wasn't fueled by flashy appearances or staged biographies. It grew from authenticity. He lived the life people admired: fast cars, wild freedom, and quiet rebellion. That realness turned into profit, long after he was gone. His estate didn't sit still. His family, led by Chad McQueen and later Molly McQueen, signed major licensing agreements that shaped how the world sees Steve today. From clothing brands to car campaigns, his image became a symbol of independence and cool. Every deal added another layer of income. In 2024, Porsche released a special edition 911 McQueen, a tribute designed in collaboration with the estate. It sold out instantly. Collectors paid top dollar, not just for the car, but for what it represented. McQueen didn't just act in Le Mans, he was Le Mans. That connection remains priceless. His old ranch in Idaho, once his private retreat, is now a secluded family property. The land alone has appreciated significantly. But more importantly, it remains a place where his descendants gather, away from the business spotlight. It's one of the few places untouched by branding, a quiet link to who he really was. Yet, there's one part of his legacy that's still wrapped in mystery. Insiders close to the estate say a final storage vault still exists, untouched, unopened, and full of unknowns. Rumors say it holds handwritten letters to James Dean, a draft script for a prison escape film McQueen never made, and an audio tape recorded just before he died. No one has confirmed it, but people close to the family say it's real. This vault isn't just a footnote. If real, it could rewrite parts of his legacy, revealing personal thoughts, creative dreams, and final messages. Some speculate the tape may include McQueen's reflections on fame, family, and regrets. Others believe it's a message he meant to leave behind but never shared publicly. The longer it stays locked, the more powerful the myth becomes. The most surprising part of McQueen's fortune is that none of it was planned to work this way. He never gave speeches about building a brand. He didn't chase media attention or write a tell-all memoir. He lived hard, worked selectively, and kept to himself. But that very distance is what gave him timeless appeal. In the years since, his name has become more than a memory, it's a business model. Brands still study his style. Filmmakers still use his scenes. Marketers try to bottle the McQueen attitude, even if they don't fully understand it. All of it keeps the money flowing. McQueen's legacy now earns more each year than most working actors. It's one of the highest valued afterlives in Hollywood history. His estate doesn't just rest on old movies, it adapts, evolves, and capitalizes on nostalgia. And yet, it stays rooted in who he was, tough, quiet, and real. While fans keep discovering new photos, collectors keep hunting down memorabilia, and brands keep signing deals, the vault remains the last great mystery. It's the final piece of a puzzle built over decades. And whether it's open next year or never, its existence proves one thing: Steve McQueen still has more to say. Even from beyond the grave. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Click on the next video popping up on your screen for more amazing content.